My brothers and sisters of Providence and our guests all around the world, God bless you. We look forward to being in worship with you this Sunday, one service at 10 a.m. But this sermon preview is going to be just a little bit different. Instead of previewing the sermon that I'm going to preach this Sunday, you all know that this sermon is a special Sunday for Providence. It is the Sunday in which we are going to license 4 new ministers into the gospel. Reverend Rocky Major, Reverend Brittany McGee, Reverend Deborah Fortune, and Reverend Jimmy Jackson. They're going to preach their initial sermons. And so as a preview, I'm going to let you know what an initial sermon is about. You see, in other traditions that are in what we call connected churches, like the United Methodist Church, the Presbyterian Church, or the Episcopalian Church, there is a central governing body that determines how their ministers are assigned, developed, trained, matured, and prepared for ministry. We're Baptists. We don't have a central organization that is doing all of that work for us. So the development of our ministers, the next level of clergy that are going to be leading the Baptist church over the next 50, 100, 200 years, that responsibility falls on us as the church. It is our responsibility as we identify and as members in our congregations identify a call on their lives. It is our responsibility to support them, to love them, to train them, and most importantly, to give them their credentials, which is to license them. So at Providence, there is a year-long ministers in training program that once a young person or any person identifies a call to the ministry, they take part in what we call MIT, Ministers in Training, where I, as the pastor of Providence, I train them. I train them in pedagogy and sermon writing and sermon preparation. I train them in spiritual counseling and how to minister to others. I train them in administration and ministerial ethics. I train them in all aspects of ministry that they're going to have to deal with, whether they go to become pastors or youth pastors or executive administrators or however in ministry they are going to serve. We provide them in that year the foundational tools that they're going to use. They have books that they have to read. They have assignments they have to do. We have gatherings of class, if you will, that we have in our training sessions. And this gets them prepared. My responsibility as a pastor is to train the next generation of clergy, whether they're going to be pastors or whatever the job they're going to have in the Baptist church. Now, to connect with our roots, once they conclude a year's worth of training with me, they then preach an initial sermon in our church. At the conclusion of the preaching of that initial sermon, I then make a recommendation to the chairman of our board of deacons that these brothers and sisters are to be licensed. The chairman of the deacons, if he or she is in so agreement, then makes a motion before the church. The motion is then carried by the moderator of our church conference. It receives a second, and then they are voted upon. It is your job as the church congregation of Providence to experience these ministers over the past year, to listen to them teach, to listen to other sermons that they have preached, to engage with them in ministry, to work with them in the service of Jesus Christ and the gospel therein. In so doing, you're able to assess if you see the same spiritual calling on their lives that I see and that we believe God has placed. And if so, it is then your responsibility as a faithful member of Providence to vote in support of this person's ministry as Providence becomes the foundational place that their ministry has started. The pastor doesn't license new ministers. The church licenses new ministers. I train them, and then a body of believers gathers around them, wraps their loving arms around them, and says, we support your ministry because we believe and have seen and have evidence of what God is doing in your life. Their initial sermons are so important because I tell them in their initial sermons, I'm not looking for something that is so theologically eloquent or so biblically astute. I'm looking for your testimony. I believe that God calls all of us to begin our ministries by sharing our testimony. Where is that vulnerable place where some text in the 66 books of the Holy Bible intersects with your life? That's what you're going to hear this Sunday in these sermons. These initial sermons are going to be the sharing of heart and of love to let these ministers let you know who they are and how God has moved in their lives. And hopefully how God will move in their lives for many, many years to come as our church and the Baptist church denomination in general grows because of these preachers. So this is your sermon preview for this week. Get ready for what's going to happen this Sunday, August 30th, one service, 10 a.m. with all of our new ministers. Pray for them, and we'll have a wonderful time in worship. God bless you, Providence.